fact is that only 2% of mankind is building the equipment where we are all depending on. And even the people who are working in the banks have no idea anymore how their own algorithms work and are developing. So it's a kind of out of the question for people like me at least to really learn to understand. So the only thing we can do is try to keep track on the big lines and trying to see what the effects of these things are. So we are talking here about all those newer media, because new media is always a very difficult term. Because something that's new today is not new anymore tomorrow, and next year something else will be newer media. So that's why. And one of its key characteristics we are dealing with today is that they are very social and they're becoming more and more immersive. Not only in a VR way of speaking, but also immersive in the way that we cannot escape them. We have them on our bodies. They are tracing us always. There's no much anymore distinction between you as a human body, physically, identity with a mind and a soul and a brain and a heart and a gut, and this digital layer that surrounds you. You drag it along with you. You can unplug for a few days, go to the woods, but in the end you go back into the working society. So we have to find a way to unplug ourselves in different ways. That being said, this we saw yesterday about Marshall McLuhan, the medium or the message. What's more important? I think today, I tried to say this yesterday as well, it's a very poignant combination. We're looking at this hardcore war scene products and this horrible scenes in the world that are affecting us emotionally deeply. And at the same time, it seems insignificant what kind of medium we use to address these topics. But I think, and I think your talk really proves it as well, that it's super important to look at this medium. What is the power of the medium? What does it engage? And how is its agency influencing the way we look at things? There's someone who really foresaw this in '94. Who of you saw this clip already? It's David Bowie. He turned out not just to be a singer. He's much more than that.
I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg. I think the potential of what the internet is going to do to society, both good and bad, is unimaginable. I think we're actually on the cusp of something exhilarating and terrifying.
It's just a tool though, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, it's an alien life form.
What do you think, I mean, when you think then about...
Is there life on Mars? Yes, it's just landed here.
But it's simply a different delivery system there. You're arguing about something more profound.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about the actual context and the state of content is going to be so different to anything that we can really envisage at the moment. Where the interplay between the user and the provider will be so in simpatico, it's going to crush our ideas of what mediums are all about.
Well, this is where we kind of just woke up to, I think. I am someone who used to be really enthusiastic about the internet and the social potential of it and how it would democratize our whole society and how it would bring wisdom and knowledge to so many people. And slowly, bit by bit, we start to realize that we ended up in some kind of different way of relating to each other. So, Brave New World, there we are. It has something that can be terrifying, but on the other hand, I still think that we are really brave the way we are trying to find an attitude to work with this. It's between utopian and dystopian. There are some very nasty parts of the internet, and on the other hand, it really brings us beautiful examples and beautiful possibilities. So let's go back to the beginning. This is the ARPANET. It really started out as an academic network, connecting a few academic computers and professors who were going to be able to send each other information, etc. And pretty soon this became larger and larger, and I think at the beginning of the 90s, normal people, students, scholars, people in the Netherlands started to be able, and Europe, to plug into this internet as well, and we came into an era where we start to call this internet cyberspace. Cyberspace as in a sense that It was a kind of completely detached from the real world. It was really a different way of being. Internet was seen as home of the mind. It was allegedly given us tools for democracy, to enhance our democracy. But later on, we moved into the era of the Web 2.0. It became more and more commercialized. And then we are here today, surrounded by the filter bubbles, the fake news and the post-truth. So this cyberspace is actually something that a lot of people believed in the beginning was going to give us a better world, a place where we could be free from everything that bothered us in real life. We could be free from the big organizations, the big governments that were telling us what to do and what not to do. So one of these people that it was really, this is going too fast, thinking about this is Barlow, and he wrote a Declaration of Independence. We're just going to listen to a tiny bit of it.
Governments of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel, I come from cyberspace, the new home of mind. On behalf of the future, I ask you of the past to leave us alone. You are not welcome among us. You have no sovereignty where we gather. We have no elected government, nor are we likely to have one, so I address you with no greater authority than that with which liberty itself always speaks. I declare the global social space we are building to be naturally independent of the tyrannies you seek to impose on us. We will create a civilization of the mind in cyberspace. May it be more humane and fair than the world your governments have made before. Davos, Switzerland, February 8th, 1996, and read in New York City, July 30th, 2013.
Well, this is kind of cynical right now. Yeah, this is exactly the opposite. What happened? He himself, a few days later, already said, like, okay, I was kind of naive, but at the same time, I still feel this optimism is still there because the potential of the internet is still there. The funny thing is, we all think of the internet as the internet. It's the only thing. It was Bush, I think, years ago, who once made the slip of the tongue, like the internet. He said, or the Googles, something like that. But maybe this is just the first version of the internet, and maybe we'll get new internets that will address the problems we are being surrounded by right now. But anyway, this worked for a while, right? The totally disconnection of the physical and the virtual. It was called the virtual. Like there was not much connection, only if you wanted to be connection. This is an example of a boy who made an avatar in Second Life. Someone who was really sick and felt really, really strong online, was able to outlive his dreams and find a better life online. This is another example of a guy who wants to be a woman. So the internet was seen as you could be free from race, nationality, gender. You could try to express different identities online. So that was a very nice part of it, I think. It took a few years before the bigger organizations found out that they could do things online as well. So this enters a period where you could say the internet became a place more grounded. It was more related to everything that's happening on the ground, on the offline. Slowly we were entering the Web 2.0, and one of the most crucial things of this was that we as participants could be building stuff online more and more, as did the companies. So there were a lot of banks, there were shops, magazines, we could start our own blogs, we could really start communicating everything we were doing offline, we could do online as well. So this brought a lot of new problems about privacy, about identity. This is Nancy Beam, and she is talking a little bit about this.
Now, private conversation always had the potential of being private. But of course, when you're talking about private conversations in social media, you're talking Facebook, you're talking Twitter, and that communication can potentially be much more public. So I want to know whether you think that aspect of communication, the fact that private conversation can be more public, actually affects the way we communicate with each other now?
It does, maybe not as much as it should. I think that often people, even if they sort of know that it's public or could be public, we see time after time after time where people post things on Twitter or Facebook that get them in trouble because they just didn't fully understand how public it really was. So on the one hand, I think that it affects it in that people become increasingly innocuous. Like I've certainly noticed over the last several years that the status updates on Facebook are getting vaguer and vaguer and vaguer. You know, they used to be more personal, more meaningful, and now they tend to be things like, thinks it was different yesterday than it is today, right? Which means nothing at all, but it's guaranteed not to get you in trouble anywhere. So I think that there is possibly a little bit of a trend toward vagueness, but I think at the same time that public and private are really complex negotiations, and that when people are communicating through social media, they tend to be pretty focused on the audience with whom they think they're communicating and less aware of the other audiences around. So
this is exactly what I just meant in my comment earlier, that maybe we cannot change the algorithms, how Facebook is distributing our comments, but we can be aware of that it is being distributed in a way beyond our control. So we start to behave on this, we start to be less explicit, we start to realize that maybe not everybody needs to know that I used to be there and there, or I was thinking that and that. So it can be seen as a control society, that you are going to control yourself before it's getting out there in the open. But on the other hand, maybe it's just an invitation to see where you can share your opinions in different ways, and not specifically only there on that one and only medium. This is Dana Boyd. She worked a lot with youngsters, with teenagers, and she also has a very powerful voice in this whole discussion. One of the things she is addressing is this algorithms feeding us stuff back to effect more than, it gives us more of the same. It's like being obese is one of her narratives. Like, you like French fries, you like mashed potatoes, that's great. So you ate it once, I will give it you again tomorrow. Because you ate that, I will give it you again tomorrow, and again, and again, and again. Well, maybe when you stop thinking, okay, I have this today, and tomorrow I would like to have something else. But that's usually not how it works. So it enhances, it enforces maybe the bad, not really bad, but the less, the less good parts you want to focus on yourself, and it keeps enforcing that part of yourself. So that's the filter bubble and the echo chamber dilemma that we have to be aware of, I think.
That room, there's also a camera pointed at me, and I have no idea who's behind that camera. I have no idea if anything I'm saying makes sense. I don't know if they're listening to this in 2012 or 2015. I don't know if they've even heard of these terms. I don't know if what I'm saying has been chopped up and modified, right? That's an invisible audience. And one of the challenges in an online environment is that young people have to navigate invisible audiences every day as a process of participation. The result of which is that by and large, they try to imagine who their audience is. And it's not just young people doing this. This is adults as well. You have a vision of who you think the audience should be. And in fact, that's actually one of the things about the friends list. The friends list on social media is in many ways an articulation of who you want the audience to be, who you imagine it to be, and who you think you're speaking to. But how do you navigate all of these invisible audiences? Many adults, they like to play ostrich, pretend like those audiences don't exist. Young people are hoping that the invisible audiences might actually pay attention to them in a positive way, but it's always a challenge.
So this is something that younger children do start to realize. So, for example, I have a daughter, she's 13, and since she is the age of 7, she forbids me to post any pictures of her on Facebook. So she censors me, which is, I think, a good thing. Yeah. This is Dana Boyd, B-O-U-Y-D. Yeah. So it's also a generation thing. The other example, the Instagram accounts of the friends of my daughter, there are accounts that have, for example, this one girl, she has over 600 followers or friends, I don't know how it's called. She is only one picture online. So what do those kids? They post very deliberate, one picture they are proud of. And after a week, they take it down again. So they have a completely empty profile. They start to take control within the mechanisms of the systems. And that's really, well, giving me a lot of hope. They're smarter than us older guys who are on Facebook and keep putting everything online forever and ever and ever. She taught me when she was 6 not to put my private life online. And I used another help to myself. For example, I opened my Facebook account to anyone, just to remind myself, like, don't fool yourself that it's only your friends who are seeing your profile posts. Everybody can see this. You never know when someone twists the switch somewhere. So be sure everything you do online, it will be public one day, maybe. And this is something about awareness that really can help give us a tool to fight the machine. Because I truly believe that the machine itself, it's pretty hard to fight. Only we, with our behavior, can mold it into different ways. Because the minute we start behaving the companies want, they will change their behavior. They will adapt because they need us. Because we are their food, we are their audiences, we are their everything. Without us, there is no machine. So this is something that she addresses in a very nice way, I think. So in the meantime, we are slowly getting more and more aware of this filter bubble we are in. That we are seeing only the things that we like to see, or at least that the algorithms think we like to see. Maybe we would have loved to see other things, but we don't even know anymore after a certain amount of time. If you never leave your own thread on the internet, it keeps sending you the same messages. There's one educator. He is an academic, and he has a nice TED talk about this.
So Facebook isn't the only place that's doing this kind of invisible algorithmic editing of the web. Google's doing it too. If I search for something and you search for something, even right now at the very same time, we may get very different search results. Even if you're logged out, one engineer told me, there are 57 signals that Google looks at. Everything from what kind of computer you're on, to what kind of browser you're using, to where you're located, that it uses to personally tailor your query results. Think about it for a second. There is no standard Google anymore. And you know, the funny thing about this is that it's hard to see. You can't see how different your search results are from anyone else's. But a couple of weeks ago, I asked a bunch of friends to Google Egypt and to send me screenshots of what they got. So here's my friend Scott's screenshot, and here's my friend Daniel's screenshot. When you put them side by side, you don't even have to read the links to see how different these two pages are. But when you do read the links, it's really quite remarkable. Daniel didn't get anything about the protests in Egypt at all in his first page of Google results. Scott's results were full of them. And this was the big story of the day at that time. That's how different these results are becoming. So it's not just Google and Facebook either. You know, this is something that's sweeping the web. There are a whole host of companies that are doing this kind of personalization. Yahoo News, the biggest news site on the internet, is now personalized. Different people get different things. Huffington Post, Washington Post, New York Times, all flirting with personalization in various ways. And where this moves us very quickly toward a world in which the internet is showing us what it thinks we want to see, but not necessarily what we need to see. As Eric Schmidt said, it'll be very hard for people to watch or consume something that has not, in some sense, been
tailored to them. It's too soon. Well, this pretty wraps up. This is, I think, the one thing we are becoming more and more aware of, and, well, makes a lot of sense to me. And the other thing is, and that's a kind of a thing that the former speaker could have addressed nicely. Maybe when we see her again, we can check this, because there is this these organizations like Google, Facebook, etc. They started out back in the days claiming they were not proper businesses. They were some kind of innovation platforms, really important for society. So they were able to escape all kind of tax legislations. They were able to escape all kinds of regulations as well. And they still do. And they keep on doing this. For example, Facebook still calls itself not a company, but a social utility. When Google is being addressed as having a monopoly in a too harsh way and favoring its own search results in favor of others, it gets a fine of 2.7 million, and they say we won because it's nothing to them. You know, so they are getting so big, and they are not being addressed according to the proper regulations as you and me are being addressed to if we would start a normal business there. So this whole public opinion that it's not about the business, but it's about the social utility. Zuckerman himself is starting to do a world tour in the US, visiting the 24 states. As you know, that is what people do who want to become a president. He calls himself a platform for the democracy. He tries to frame Facebook as a public sphere, as an open place, and we have to be aware, because it is not. It is not a public sphere. There is so much going on in there. It has nothing to do with the public sphere in a sense as Habermas once addressed, that you have to start seeing for what it is. But at the same time, all those new tools do also give us new opportunities to tell very different sort of stories that can help us in other ways. So be careful with totally unplugging or totally denying all the technological innovations. Just try how you can use it for a better good, how you can use it to tell your own story and to make a better story out of things. One of the people who are doing great things here, this is Yasmin Aylat from New York, from Scatter, and she made a VR version of a documentary by Alex Gibney, 0 Days. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to watch a trailer of 0 Days. 0 Days this is kind of a bubble in a bubble in a bubble, because 0 Days is about nuclear warfare and how algorithms can secretly let explode nuclear engines all over the world and thereby plugging out whole cities of energy, for example, and how this is being used as a cyber war tool, and Gibney used virtual reality and other visual tools to convey this story to a larger audience.
Why can't we talk more openly and publicly about Stuxnet?
2 answers before you even get started. I don't know, and if I did, we wouldn't talk about it anyway. Something as simple and innocuous as this becomes a challenge for all of us to maintain accountability and control of our critical infrastructure systems. This actually contains the Stuxnet virus. It's impacting industrial control. Is this something that's coming after the homeland? If you get up in the morning and turn off your alarm and make coffee, power plants, power grids, and pump gas, transportation, telecommunication, and use the ATM, you've touched industrial control systems. It's what powers our lives.
Most of these systems are relatively easy for a sophisticated hacker
To get into.
The security experts who are studying Stuxnet really think it required the resources of a nation state.
It spread to any Windows machine in the entire world. We didn't know if it was set to turn off all electricity plants around the world, or it would start shutting things down or launching some attack.
It was blowing up centrifuges, and it was leaving no trace.
There have been assassinations of nuclear scientists. Some human assets had to be involved. Spies.
It went beyond our worst fears, our worst nightmares.
This is not your ordinary criminal doing this. This is someone bigger.
The monster turned against its creator, and now everyone is in this game.
This has the whiff of August 1945. Somebody just used a new weapon, and this weapon will not be put back into the box.
You've been focusing on Stuxnet, but that was just a small part of a much larger mission.
documentary. Next to the documentary is the VR experience. And there you are a bit in a computer, you're inside a virtual world and you get the story in a different way. The people who are telling the story, they want to remain anonymous and they are being represented basically by this 3D grid of people. It's not the real woman, you just saw it's not the real person talking, but they use the actors, but they use the visual layer again to make it feel extra real. And I think it's both an example of a very beautiful way how to use new technologies to visualize this kind of story, and a story in itself is pretty much in the core of the dystopian part of this whole internet thing.
And they showed us all the bad people in the world.
Basically.
Yeah. Because we had this discussion before. I mean, that was a very clear American propaganda thing we just saw. Yeah.
Yeah. Even that. Yeah. But it also shows that it's all less visible than we think. This whole idea of transparency. That we, for example, North Korea launched a nuclear weapon. Wow, this is on television. We can think, wow, it's there, this is scary. But I think far more scary are all these things below the surface, and that even the people who are ruling our countries are not talking about, and denying that it exists. And at the same time, it's even multiplying itself out of our control, because it's just growing, it's an artificial life form. And where can this stop? And that's more the message I try to convey here than taking a political stance.
I mean, the film it's an investigative documentary, and it's very, like, what it does very well is basically disclosing how it works, like how the algorithm works, how the virus works, and how actually, I think people probably who can read code, even like, they make it very visually, very compelling.
No, I'm not questioning all this.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just the no, it's right.
I'm just saying that it was very selective and very.
Well, but it's a trailer of a movie of 2 hours, so that's for one. But the basic message is the system, how it works, is it's the trailer. This virus, it's called Stuxnet. It's on a small, and in fact, what it's programmed to do is to alter things a little bit, just enough to fuck things up, and not enough to be discovered. But how can you be sure that this level of destroying things can be controlled? And if it's out of control, it's potentially blowing up everything.
No,
anyway,
no,
I understand.
I'm very aware of all this, but it was only one side.
Yes, but it's okay. That's
all I wanted to say. It was a very clear black and white story. Who was the good?
I don't think so. That's absolutely not true. You see Obama. You see Obama next to.
Obama is the bad guy as well. Like, everybody are the bad guys. So the problem is the whole geopolitical.
Check the movie.
Check the movie. Like,
okay.
It's
we continue. Another way of using technology and trying to look to the future to see what we are ready for is this film by, and I keep forgetting his name, he's Keiichi Matsuda. He's living in the UK, but he's from Japan. And he made a film in Medellin, Colombia, in fact. And what he did is kind of projecting us into a world, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, and how this could be. And in my opinion, the way to address these kind of developments, technological possibilities for the near future, it really makes sense to do it this way, because now we can look at it and think like, oh, is this what we want? Is this what we need? Do we go there, or are we going to resist?
Voy lo más rápido que puedo.
Has pensado en correr. Es saludable y eficiente.
Seguro que no hay más trabajos disponibles. Yo estudié para ser profesora y estoy haciendo mercados.
Y además puedes quedarte con los puntos de fidelización. Eres una donkey afortunada. Tienes que confiar en la aplicación. ¿Te sientes inspirada? Gracias. Chao.
¿Quién soy yo? No, eso no es lo que quiero decir. ¿Para dónde voy? No. ¿Puedo volver a empezar? Olvídalo.
Estoy presente ahora y me amo. Estoy libre de mi ira. Estoy libre de mi tristeza. El amor es mi experiencia.
Adiós.
So, the future of augmented reality. Then now here, the future of our companions online.
Excuse me, what's the name of the film?
Hyper reality. I will send you or to organization that then list links I can show you, because they're all kind of larger fragments and all traceable online. And the good part of the internet, you can share and find everything. So here a short online review of Thai. Who heard of Thai? Yeah. Okay. This is also a way of fooling around with technical possibilities, and you can see how wrong they go, but also it's really funny at the same time. I think we need that as well to be able to laugh about.
So Microsoft recently released this AI chatbot called Tay that let you message it on a bunch of different platforms, whether it's Twitter, Kik, or GroupMe. And the whole idea was that it would be kind of like a humorous chatbot, and it would talk like a teenager. And it was actually pretty funny for the one day it was up. I messaged it a few times, and it had some pretty cheeky answers. For example, when it asked me what it should call me, I told it to call me King Schmaka of the Andals, and then it called me King of the Peasants. I also asked it if it smoked weed, and it said yes. But then apparently people figured out how they could manipulate this chatbot and get it to say some nasty things, such as this. It was also found quoting Donald Trump about his wall, and a few other things that probably can't be repeated. I guess what it was doing was sampling what other people were saying to it, and then using that same text back to respond to people when it thought it was relevant. So I think what some people were doing was just messaging it tons of nasty stuff and hoping it would use it as a response somewhere else, which is actually kind of funny, let's be honest. So less than a day after it started, Microsoft stopped it from responding, and they said that they're going to take it down for maintenance and modify it, of course, and then they also went and deleted a lot of those offensive tweets. Hopefully they'll turn it back on, because it actually was pretty hilarious, and it's the internet, so it's no surprise that people try to turn something innocent into something completely terrible.
Okay, that we should keep doing. Then something totally different. This is an installation or a VR piece called Deep VR by Mono Banda in the Netherlands and Owen Harris from Scotland. And it's originally developed by the game artist Owen, who suffered from anxiety attacks. And he had meditation therapy for this, and it really worked, but it was very boring. So I thought, I'm going to make a game to be able to breathe well and quiet myself down if I'm getting upset again. And he did. And this game is now in a halfway phase. Basically, it's already out there. It has been premiered at Tribeca. It was commissioned by Cinekit a few years ago. In its first version, the University in Nijmegen, the Radboud University, and their program for developmental psychology stepped aboard, and they are using it for doing research on children and to see how these kind of exercises can help them by fighting their fear and gaining more confidence. And just a small clip. It's an underwater world in which you can navigate by breathing. So you are wearing a belt around your belly, and by breathing very deeply, go down and further down in the world. If you start breathing more shallow, you go up. And the beautiful thing that is happening here is that somehow a lot of VR pieces make you feel that you're somehow cut off by the neck and by the hands if you have controls, but your body is not involved. But here, because you're navigating by your breath, it is absolutely like essential, as if you are a living being inside of this world. The minute you are watching an object and you take a deep breath, it starts to glow up. So there is no distinction anymore between you and what you are seeing. And it's the funny thing was in the beginning, when they just started to experiment with this game. Even this is Dog Leipzig, by the way, a few years ago. In the beginning, when people experienced the game, even grown men came out crying. So emotionally touched they were by this feeling of being whole and complete and in an utterly different world. The other funny thing is that after a few years, people got used to virtual reality. This crying stopped. I remember one of the chats, I'm involved in the project, one of the chats on Slack was from Owen himself, and he wrote, "Guys, we have a problem. I showed it in London, nobody cried." So this was funny, like, okay, we're getting used to VR stuff, so we don't can harvest the same kind of emotional response. Is this a problem? I don't know, but it's nice to notice, and the project's still going on. It's going in the second phase shortly, I hope. Then is the last one. I'd like you to show a short clip by this wonderful woman. Her name is Anat Jain from Superflux. They are a designing company, and what they do is making narratives, possible narratives for the future. And they try to recreate this in real life so we can discuss them, so we can see how can we try to differ its course, how can we alter its course, how can we approach this in another way.
So how do we go about doing this? For a recent project called Drone Avery, we were interested in exploring what it would mean to live with drones in our cities. Drones that have the power to see things we can't, to go places we can't, and to do so with increasing autonomy. But to understand the technology, getting our hands dirty was crucial. So we built several different drones in our studio. We gave them names, functions, and then flew them. But not without difficulty. Things came loose, GPS signals glitched, and drones crashed. But it was through such experimentation that we could construct a very concrete and very experiential slice of one possible future. So now, let's go to that future. Let's imagine we are living in a city with drones like this one. We call it the Night Watchman. It patrols the streets, often spotted in the evenings and at nights. Initially, many of us were annoyed by its low, dull hum. But then, like everything else, we got used to it. Now what if you could see the world through its eyes? See how it constantly logs every resident of our neighborhood, logging the kids who play football in the no-ball game area and marking them as statutory nuisances. And then see how it disperses this other group who are teenagers with the threat of an autonomously issued injunction. And then there's this giant floating disc called Madison. Its glaring presence is so overpowering I can't help but stare at it. But it feels like each time I look at it, it knows a little more about me. Like it keeps flashing all these Brian Air adverts at me, as if it knows about the holiday I'm planning. I'm not sure if I find this mildly entertaining or just entirely invasive.
So leave it here. New technologies change the way we tell and share our stories, change our relation to the world, and also change us at the same time by the way how we use them. We also change these technologies. So those possible future narratives and trying to think through options that are visible today really helps us to resist certain developments, and thereby we really can alter them, I think. And that's, well, we'll leave it here because I think we are really running late already. You have a large program. I just wanted to say that I am truly amazed that there are so many people here being so involved in these topics. It's nice to see you here so critical and so paying attention to it. And I hope you have a great 2 days.
Thank you very much. I hope you will